So, legendary director Francis Ford Coppola's new movie, Megalopolis, his supposed magnum opus, decades in the making, has finally been made, and now it has finally been screened at the Cannes Film Festival, meaning we now have our first reviews of the film available to see. I thought we'd take a look at some non-spoiler experts from some of the reviews to gauge what people are saying about it. There's also some weird stories that are coming out from the filming of the movie. Accusations that Coppola went up to women who played extras and tried to kiss them and got them to sit in his lap, him arguing he was trying to get them in the mood. A co-producer commented on this, defending the director, saying, "Francis successfully produced and directed an enormous independent film, making all the difficult decisions to ensure it was delivered on time and on budget, while remaining true to his creative vision. There were 2 days when we shot a celebratory Studio 54-esque club scene, where Francis walked around the set to establish the spirit of the scene by giving kind hugs and kisses on the cheek to the cast and background players. It was his way to help inspire and establish the club atmosphere, which was so important to the film. I was never aware of any complaints of harassment or ill behavior during the course of the project." And according to one source, he would often show up in the morning before these big sequences, and because no plan had been put in place and because he wouldn't allow his collaborators to put a plan in place, he would often just sit in his trailer for hours on end, wouldn't talk to anybody, was often smoking marijuana, and hours would go by without anything being filmed, and the crew and the cast would just stand around and wait. And then he'd come out and whip up something that didn't make sense and that didn't follow anything anybody had spoken about or anything that was on the page. And we'd all just go along with it, trying to make best out of it. But pretty much every day, we'd just walk away shaking our heads wondering what we just spent the last 12 hours doing. Another crew member said, "This sounds crazy to say, but there were times when we were all standing around going, 'Has this guy ever made a movie before?'" Then again, director Mike Friggs, who was on set, said, "I have no idea where Francis gets his energy from. Watching an 84-year-old guy hold together that massive team and to have enough brains to be able to direct the actors, the cameras and everything. He was up every morning making notes on his way onto the set, or he's discussing his ideas with Roman, his son. And at the end of the day, he's also the producer, so he's thinking about his interest rate." It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows though, as Friggs added. He and Shia had this wonderful combative relationship which was very productive. Shia had a lot of questions and sometimes Francis would be stressed by a bunch of other things and he would respond in a certain way. There was a lot of humour involved, so it was very entertaining, but sometimes he was just like, "Ugh, I can't deal with this," and he'd just go into the Silverfish and direct from there. Coppola collaborator Richard Begg said, "Francis has always had this reputation for being ahead of his time. He's laughed at and tolerated with good humour, and then 10 or 15 years later, people are saying, 'This guy knew what was going to happen.'" In any case, Megalopolis is really living up to the hype as to Francis going out with a bang, because in typical Coppola fashion, after a project that took a huge amount of effort to get off the ground, one that he self-financed for $120 million by selling off parts of his winery, one thing we can say is that the movie is very divisive, and one thing everyone seems to agree on is that it's a crazy film. So currently the movie is sitting in the green zone at Metacritic with a score of 65 out of 100 from 14 reviews, and it has a 48% score on Rotten Tomatoes with 21 reviews, so clearly not everyone likes this film. Here's what the critics said. Variety, who gave it 50, said, "To call this garish, idea-bloated monstrosity a mere fable is to grossly undersell the project's expansive insight into art, life and legacy." The Hollywood Reporter, who gave it 60, said, "It's windy and overstuffed, frequently baffling and way too talky, quoting Hamlet and The Tempest, Marcus Aurelius and Petrarch, ruminating on time, consciousness and power to a degree that becomes ponderous. But it's also amusing, playful, visually dazzling and illuminated by a touching hope for humanity." Deadline said, "Megalopolis represents a rare kind of event movie that reinvents the possibilities of cinema to the extent that halfway through there's a very audacious gimmick that tears down the fourth wall in ways younger filmmakers can only dream of. Coppola breaks many of the cardinal rules of filmmaking in the film's 138 minutes, but it upholds the most important one. It is never ever boring, and it will inspire just as many artists as the audiences it will alienate. IndieWire gave it a B+, and they said, with Megalopolis, he crams 85 years worth of artistic reverence and romantic love into a clunky, garish, and transcendently sincere manifesto about the role of an artist at the end of an empire. It doesn't just speak to Coppola's philosophy, it embodies it to a bone. To quote one of the sharper non sequiturs from his script that's swimming in them, when we leap into the unknown, we prove that we are free. The Guardian gave it a 2 out of 5 and said, Francis Ford Coppola's question, can the US empire last forever, may be valid, but flashes of humour cannot rescue this conspiracy thriller from awful acting and dull effects. The LA Times said, in a larger sense, Coppola has moved from the cynicism of his greatest films like The Conversation and Apocalypse Now, so much power doing so much corrupting, into something that could fairly be called utopian. I'm not sure if that's what I want from him as an artist, but I thrill to his unbowed aspiration. He's not going out with something tame and manicured, but an overstuffed, vigorous, seething story about the roots of fascism that only an uncharitable viewer would call a catastrophe. Rather, it feels like a city. It may be the most radical film he's ever done. He's dedicated it to his late wife, who would have smiled at the evidence of her husband still doing his thing 45 years later. Rolling Stones gave it an 80 and said, say what you want about this grand gesture at filtering Edward Gibbon's history lessons through a lens darkly. It is exactly the movie that Coppola set out to make, uncompromising, uniquely intellectual, unabashedly romantic, uppercase and lowercase r. Broadly satirical yet remarkably sincere about wanting not just brave new worlds but better ones. Vanity Fair said, Megalopolis is too confused a film to make a truly odious or dangerous point, though the ending of the Vesta plotline is somewhat alarming. This is the junkiest of junk drawer movies, a slap-together hash of Coppola's many disparate inspirations. The Telegraph gave it an 80, and said Aubrey Plaza is fantastic in this full-body sensory bath movie which follows a struggle for power among the elites of New Rome. Screen Daily gave it 40 and said, but the amount of stray ideas and themes that are introduced then abandoned, such as the fact that Caesar has the ability to stop time, leaves Megalopolis feeling like an unwieldy mess. Caesar and Cicero's showdown over New Rome is handled in terribly disjointed ways, and the attempts by supporting characters to grasp power add to the picture's cluttered construction. In recent years, few authors have dreamed as boldly as Coppola has with his film, but some visions, as Megalopolis' characters discover, are doomed to failure. The Wrap said, after 4 decades in the making, Megalopolis plays as a frustrating and paradoxical affair. The film is expertly assembled and sleepily directed all at once. It wows with its imagination and erudition, all while leaving you a little more than bemused. Collider gave it a 4 out of 10, saying, much like the city being built in the film, it's all more interesting in theory than it ever is in actuality. Now that we all have the chance to take it in for ourselves, the greatest revelation is that there just isn't that much there to see. Vulture said, I've written elsewhere that I thought he'd lost his mind with Bram Stoker's Dracula, a movie I now consider a masterpiece. Surely the man who staked his entire studio on One from the Heart, the beautiful, woozy, unforgettable, financially dead-on arrival One from the Heart, wasn't thinking clearly. And so, he's done it again, and perhaps exceeded himself. Megalopolis might be the craziest thing I've ever seen, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy every single batshit second of it. What Deadline said about the fourth wall break seems to be a crazy moment that is described here in one review. But the inexplicable doesn't stop there. In what will go down as a live first for me, there's one out-of-nowhere moment in the film where Caesar is engaged in a press conference and a gentleman, who we as the audience assumed was a paid actor, actually walked out onto the Cannes stage with a microphone and proceeded to ask driver Caesar questions, which the film's edit responded to in real time. Why? Who knows? Will this happen again at other screenings? No idea. Would they still leave the scene in the film and not have a live component to it? Probably. But honestly, this is a film that perhaps defies comprehension. That sounds absolutely balmy. Like, will Coppola hire actors in every screening this film is ever in to walk up to the projection and ask Adam Driver's character questions? What about people watching the film at home? Is there some antenna or something that knows when you're playing the film and someone bursts in through your window to ask Adam Driver a question? In truth, the final commercial version of the film will probably have just someone talk off screen and Driver will answer the question. Most people will never know about this wild stunt Coppola pulled at Cannes. But this bit of information is very much in line with stuff I've heard Coppola has done on some of his experimental films from the past few years. I think it was the film Twixt, some live editing that he used to do in the movie. I don't fully know what it was about, but I've heard he would gauge the audience's reactions, and based on how he thought they were feeling, he would re-edit the film live as it was playing. So whatever Megalopolis is, whether it's an absolute mess made by a man who lost his mind on set of Apocalypse Now and never recovered, or it's an insane masterpiece, an innovative comeback that will only be appreciated in 20 years, it does sound like at the very least it's going to be unique, and it's Coppola swinging for the fences again. I just want to end with a pretty cool quote from Coppola in an interview done in 2010, where he said, "I don't think things through, I feel them through. And I know that half the time I might not land right. And maybe there's a pleasure in that, but in my life I have to say that served me well. When you're this old guy dying, you don't want to say, I wish I had done that and that. In my case, I did it. I did all the things other people would just regret that they didn't try. Because in the end, you die. You don't get any award just for being conservative." So what do you think of these reviews of Megalopolis? Are you still looking forward to the movie? Let me know in the comments section below. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching.